In verse 44, and the Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the fields." Yeah. But look at what David said. Mm-hmm. Then said David to the Goliath, "Thou comest to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a shield." But David said, "I come to thee in the name of the one who created the heaven and earth."
Yes, thank you.
Woo!
Very powerful.
And the Elohim of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day, David said, will Father Yah deliver thee unto mine hand, and I will smite thee and take off your head with your own sword. Did he do it?
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Because that day, it's not David who fought Goliath. Now imagine just that one stone hit Goliath in the forehead just like the speed of a bullet. Because we know the story. It sunk into the forehead of Goliath. It's just like when David put his sling out with the stone traveling like speed of a bullet, it crossed Goliath's forehead. And yeah, it's like Sister Ronnie said, do the rest. That's how mighty and powerful our Father is in facing the Goliath in our lives too.
Thank you, Father.
Woo, yes,
Thank you.
He was there. And He is there all the time. Is it impossible for these 4 giant slayer already if they will do it by themselves? Yes. But there's no such thing as impossible to Father Yah. Because it is written, for man it is impossible. But for Father Yah, it is not. The next giant slayer, whom do you think? We will call King Hezekiah. You know the story of King Hezekiah? King Hezekiah is facing a mighty army who conquered nations around him. It's the king of Syria, King Sennacherib. Now, here's the story of King Sennacherib when he about to subdue the land of the Judah, or land of Judah. In 2 Chronicles, here we go. It's impossible, yes, because this king conquered so many nations already. So when he came to the land of Israel, in Chronicles chapter 32, 2 Chronicles chapter 32, verse 1. Here it is. Verse 1, he said, after these things, and the establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Judah, and encamped against the fenced cities, and thought to win them for himself. Now, I want you to visualize the setting of the story. The Israelite people are inside the wall of Jerusalem. And Sennacherib's thinking is to wait until the food and the water of the Israelites run down. That's his strategy to conquer Israel. And the Israelites know by the story of mouth that Sennacherib is the mighty king who subdued a lot of nations around them. So the fear is in their hearts. And being the king, Hezekiah knows that he has no match to King Sennacherib. He knows that. But take a look at what Hezekiah did. In verse 13. Eto. Here it is. In verse 13, Sennacherib is trying to tell what he did to the nations around them. Know you not what I and my fathers have done unto all the people of other lands? Were the mighty ones of the nations of those lands anyways able to deliver the lands out of my hand? Sennacherib is telling the Israelites, you believe in your Elohim, that your Elohim is going to drive me out of your land. But did you know that there are mighty ones of the nations that I subdued? But the thing is, Sennacherib don't know that the Elohim of Israel is the true and only one Elohim who can deliver Israel out of Sennacherib. Sennacherib don't know that. Because Sennacherib thought that the Elohim of the Israelites is or are like the Elohim or the gods of those nations that he conquered. Our son Hendricks told us or read this earlier how these gods or mighty ones of nations who has mouth that cannot talk, who has hands that cannot do, who has feet that cannot walk. That's what Sennacherib think about Father Yahweh. But take a look in verse 20 of the same chapter. After Sennacherib boasts about what he did, here comes Hezekiah and his men. In verse 20, and for this cause, after the Israelites and the king heard Sennacherib, Hezekiah the king, and the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amos, prayed and what? Cried to heaven. That's the only thing they can do. They are surrounded by the enemies, and they have nothing to do against the enemies. So the only thing that's left is to look up and ask for help. Sometimes we come to our lives that we did everything we can to face our giants. But once we did our best and still the giant's still there, the only thing that is left is to look up and ask for help.
Amen.
And sometimes we miss that in our daily living. We try to do it on our own. Sometimes we think that these hands can do things to help us in our mess. But we forgot that there is somebody who just waiting for us to plead for his great name's sake. And that's what Hezekiah and prophet Isaiah did. And you know what he did? Father Yah just sent how many angels? Just one angel. Here's the story that night when Father Yah sent that one angel. You know how many that angel smote in just one night? 185,000 soldiers. Just for one night. 185 soldiers. And after that night, do you know what happened to Sennacherib? Sennacherib went back into his kingdom, ashamed of himself. And when he arrived in his kingdom, he was killed by his own sons. Because he defied the only Elohim who can deliver Israel out of his hand. Did Father Yah do it? Yes.
Yes, he did.
Just for one angel. Now imagine the angels that are around us every day waiting for us to plead. Did you forget what our rabbi said when Kippah use his sword to defend our rabbi. Our rabbi said, could you not know that I can ask Father Yah, my Father in heaven, and quick, he can send 12 legions. And you know how many is a legion is? 6,000 men. So 12 legion is 72,000 angels. Now imagine the 72,000 times 185,000 for just one angel. So is it impossible to Father? No, there is no such thing as impossible to Father.
Right.
All we have to do is trust Him with our own giants. Last one. And whom do you think will be his last one? He is a man like us also still. And during his time, he is the one who told us, "O wretched man I am, who can deliver me of this death?" You know who that was? Saul. During Saul or Paul's time, he got what we call the spiritual battle in himself. And most of the time, you and I, that is our giant. Because if there is last man that we want to conquer, it's not our wife, it's not our siblings, it's not our parents, it is ourselves. Because the battle is in us. Just like the time of Saul. Who can deliver me? That's what Saul said, isn't it?
Yes.
That is his words in Romans chapter 7. Here we go in Romans. And sometimes we feel like the same way with Saul. In Romans, here we go. In Romans chapter 7, I will start in verse 18. And if you don't feel like this, I admire you. You mastered the art of your faith. And we should aspire not to be like Saul. That we have that spiritual battle in our life daily. We should have mastered that one way or the other as days progress. We should have not that inkling of asking ourselves which is which. Because during this time, Saul is asking us, in his time of this predicament that he is in, he has spiritual battles. He said in verse 18, "For I know that in me," meaning in my flesh, "dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good, I find not." Saul is saying, I know the word of Father Yah, but the question is, I don't know how to do it. Because the flesh in me sometimes rise up. Are we not there also sometimes? And 19, "For the good that would I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do." Now, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that willeth in me. The sin is still there. What is the sin? The inclination to transgress the law of Father Yah. You have still that inclination. Even though you know the law, you know the word of Father Yah, but the inclination to transgress it is sometimes still there. And admit it or not, we do it sometimes. And most of the time, that is our giant daily. Our rabbi says, be you perfect. Is our rabbi is asking too much from us? No, he is not. Because if we going to put into context what he is saying, you only need to live 12 hours a day. From the sunrise and before it sunsets. Just 12 hours. Because when we sleep, we cannot commit sin. Because sin is the transgression of the law. We know that the fact. So from sunrise, when we wake up, until we go sleep, is 12 hours per se. Our rabbi is only asking us to be righteous and do his will for that span of 12 hours. Because tomorrow,